How ancient wisdom correlates information between different systems, including yoga, Ayurveda, Vastu Shastra, and Vedic astrology, is beyond phenomenal. In India, a lot of emphasis is given to Vastu Shastra, and I knew that I wanted to speak about this connection between Vastu and sleep, something that has not been spoken about before in the sleep space. In today's episode, we will answer 3 questions. How does Vastu imbalance in a home impact sleep? What would be ideal Vastu for great sleep? What can be done if your home or your bedroom does not have ideal Vastu? Mastro is an award-winning designer, past president of global construction, and an expert in the art and science of Vastu. Renowned spiritual teacher Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, founder of Transcendental Meditation, asked Michael, a teacher and practitioner of meditation, to design spiritual centers worldwide for him in the late 1970s. Michael then became the leading Western expert on the art and science of Vastu and designed and built for Microsoft and Boeing during his career. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, I'm Deepa, Light Functional Medicine Practitioner, author and yogini, and you're listening to the Sleep Whisperer podcast, the only sleep podcast with conversations and meditations. I'm on a mission to share profoundly insightful sleep conversations with global visionaries that merge together functional medicine and ancient wisdom. Breathe in bliss through weekly guided meditations and let yourself enter the land of dreams. Together, let's unravel the pieces, get to the roots, and understand the right tools to transform your sleep completely. Through this podcast, I want you to dream the best version of yourself. It's time to regain hope and begin your sleep journey. Michael, welcome to the Sleep Whisperer podcast. It's my absolute honor and pleasure to host you today talking about Vastu and sleep, which I think will get a lot of downloads since it's such a unique topic in the space of sleep. One doesn't quite think about Vastu and how it plays in our sleep. And there's so much spoken about sleep today all over the world, sleep challenges, but have we ever thought about whether Vastu plays a role? And I know that in India, there are, of course, a lot of people who do bring attention to this. And there's it's spoken about even in families that don't place your head in a particular direction. But we don't hear this in a sleep space. So I don't think I've heard a single sleep specialist talking about how Vastu plays a role. And I know that you have a really deep, rich personal story coming into the practice of Vastu. And of course, you're well revered today. But before we jump into Vastu and sleep, I'd love to know your story and how the Beatles played a role, or at least the age of the Beatles.
Sure. Yeah, I was very fortunate. At a young age, I was young architect and very fortunate to meet Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the Beatles guru. And he asked me to design some buildings in Rishikesh, some meditation buildings. And it was at his feet that I learned about Vastu. He would describe certain buildings, and it was a very palpable experience where you actually felt like you were in the building. You could smell everything. And we didn't even talk about Vastu, but he was giving the orientation, the proportions, and all of the very key aspects of Vastu when he would describe these buildings that he wanted me to design. And so, yeah, this is where I learned, very fortunate to learn at his feet about Vastu. And then when I came back to the United States, I utilized those principles of Vastu to design the first Microsoft building and some buildings for Boeing. This is back in the late 60s, early 70s. So, and then, little by little, I was designing a lot of houses and office buildings, usually using Vastu. And people kept asking me, what can you do for existing buildings? I love my house. What can I do to make it Vastu compliant to support my family's health, my family's sleep, prosperity, harmony in relationships, and my career. And so these are the techniques that I had learned about in Rishikesh that I still do today.
And Michael, that sounds like such a divine blessing to be there back then at the right place at the right time. And I think there's no learning as powerful as learning under the feet of somebody. And obviously, you grasped that so beautifully and taken it so much further. And I would love for us to talk a little bit because the audience might be very new to Vastu. So maybe we could begin with a very quick overview about what is generally Vastu, what do different directions mean? Because I know for me, listening to you a few days ago was very new knowledge in spite of being in India. I just did not have a clue as to directions. So once I listened to that, I was in my mind going over where is my desk facing, where's my bed facing. So could we just do an overview first before we go
Sure.
into the specifics of sleep?
So Vastu means building, and Shastra means science. It is Vastu Shastra is the science of building, and so uh, Vastu is the sister science to Ayurveda, the science of healing, and to Jyotish, the science of the stars and how they affect us, the astrology. And they work very closely. They're very interconnected. And so what the aim of these three sister sciences is to reduce stress, to balance the five elements: earth, water, the pancha mahabhutas, the earth, water, fire, air, and space. So Ayurveda is balancing those five elements in the body, so we feel very productive, less illness, all those things. And then Vastu takes it a step further to balance the five elements in the body of our body, which is our environment, our house, our residence, our office, so that we feel uplifted in our space, so that we can utilize our full potential and do well, be productive in our career and with our family. And then Jyotish takes another step further to balance the five elements in the cosmos and reduce the planetary stress, because all three of these sister sciences, they affect about a third of our success in life: our ability to sleep deeply and get good rest, our ability to be healthy, our ability to be prosperous, our ability to have good family, good relationships, and a very fruitful career, to live up to our full potential and actually know what our dharma is, what we came here to do, how we came here to help ourselves and other people. So these three sister sciences are all about, you could think about reducing stress, and they all come from one part of the Vedas is called Atharvaveda, and this part of the Vedas is how to improve the quality of your life. So you see yoga, pranayama, meditation, and all these sister sciences coming from Atharvaveda. And so there again, Vastu is, in an overview, really is just aligning your physical body and your environment to two forces of nature: the positive solar energy that comes from the east and the positive magnetic energy that comes from the north. And when we talk about sleep and what direction you sleep in and what direction you face when you work, it's really, again, all about aligning yourself to these the earthly grid system, basically. So yeah, that's kind of an overview. And then, from there we get into, what we can do to your environment to balance those 5 elements. Because if one or more of those 5 elements is out of balance, it's going to affect your sleep and everything else in your life.
And Michael, could you also give us, before we go into the specifics, as to what each of these directions should represent? So, which part of our I know there is certain aspects of, why rooms come into certain directions. So, what are those connections?
Sure. So each of the 5 elements is associated with a specific direction and a specific area of your life. So the northeast area of your home or office is associated with the water element. And the water element has to do with growth, any kind of growth in your life, spiritual growth and financial growth. Most people think about it in terms of their finances. So if there's some kind of reduction in the water element because there's, for example, a stove or a missing corner in the northeast, this reduces the water and can impact your ability to your finances, basically your prosperity. Southeast area of your home or office has to do with the fire element, Agni. And this is your energy level, whether you have good energy to be productive in your life, whether you have a good prana in your energy field to be healthy and have a lot of vitality, and your longevity. All of those things are associated with that fire element. And the fire element is what is the Agni that digests the food. So you can say that every area of your life is connected to whether you have good digestion, your GI is in good shape, that Agni, that fire, that warmth is helps you digest the food so that you have good energy and you have good sleep. It's connected to sleep as well. Then the southwest area of your home or office is associated with the earth element. The earth element is what supports us. How your physical structure, your spine, your neck, your shoulders, your legs, your feet, to how you support yourself and your family, your career, what you came here to do, your life purpose. And then the northwest area of your home is associated with the mind, the thoughts, and whether your thinking and your actions are harmonious. And if there's some imbalance or dosha in the northwest area of the house, maybe missing corner or extension, then this can affect your thinking, your actions, your speech. And what happens when your speech is not harmonious is the relationships. There's some stress in the relationships. So all of those are impacted. Now, the very center of your house is the space element, ether element. And it is the mother of the other 4 elements. So if there is any imbalance in the center, like a furnace or a heavy staircase or a toilet or any of those things, that can reduce the space element and affect every area of your life. Now, when we talk about sleep, any imbalance in, say, the southeast is going to make your pitta increase. And this can affect your sleep. You'll wake up in the middle of the night, not be able to go back to sleep. If there's an impact to the water element in the northeast, the water gets reduced. Then water is that moon energy, that calming energy, and that can affect your sleep as well. Then each of the planets is associated with a direction as well. So the northwest is related to the planet Moon. Moon is mind and emotions. So if there's the air element gets reduced for some reason because of a missing corner or no windows or doors in the northwest, then this can affect the mind and emotions, and your sleep is not good. Vata kicks up, the Vata dosha. And then the southwest is more the kapha energy, that earth element. And so if you are, the earth element gets reduced by fire or water there, or missing corner or extension, then the sleep won't be grounded. You need some grounding energy, some earth energy, for you to sleep deeply and throw off the stress that you gained in your days. And so you see how each of these directions and these elements can affect the sleep as well.
And Michael, when you spoke, there were so many things that went through my mind, because when you describe the overall elements in the home, all of those could be potential. You spoke about Agni and how the gut, and today there's so much being spoken about gut is at the center of all health. But I mean, these are
Yes.
ancient teachings in Ayurveda, and now you're
Yeah.
correlating that with Vastu. But almost each of those areas you described could be potential root causes for poor sleep. Now, of course, I love for us to talk specifically about sleep first, in terms of what would be ideal Vastu for great sleep, meaning which part of the house should a bedroom be in, which part should the headboard. Is this different and unique to different people based upon either their prakriti, the body constitution, or as also their Vedic astrology? There must be so many nuances to deciding about the individual in a home.
There is, and it's mostly based on their dosha type, the primary dosha type. Also have sub dosha types. So just for example, if you are a pitta, primary pitta vata, say pitta vata, pitta kapha, then if you're sleeping in the southeast, the pitta dosha gets aggravated, and it would definitely affect the sleep. Your mind, you're anxious, it's hard to get to sleep, and you wake up and you can't go back to sleep. So the pitta type person, their sleep gets pacified if they're sleeping or spending more time in the southwest area of the house. That will ground that pitta energy. And so southwest is good for them. So vata primary dosha type, the mind is going all the time, and it's very hard to sleep and keep thinking about things and all that. And so a vata person should, if they sleep in the northwest area of the house, then that aggravates the vata. And again, if they can sleep in the south, southwest, or west area of the house, that grounds that vata energy, more pacifying the vata. Now, if you're kapha, those kapha people can not sleep. They'll sleep a little bit less if they're sleeping in the southwest or the northwest. So it's pacifying their kapha dosha. Whereas if they're sleeping in the northeast or the southwest, it might aggravate that kapha dosha. But generally, in Vastu, we think of beyond the doshas, the master of the house is particularly directed to sleep in the southwest area of the house. And that is because whoever sleeps more towards the southwest has more control. So when I designed the Microsoft building, I put Bill Gates in the southwest corner of the building to have more control over the company. And in a family, the master of the house, the husband and wife, if they're sleeping closer to the southwest, then it's better, they have more control over the children. Whereas if the children are sleeping in the southwest, they tend to have more control and they run their parents crazy.
And that's what is happening in my home, I think, Michael, because I went to the direction and that's where my son's room is, and I can totally see that happening today in his teens.
It's very interesting. But yeah, generally we go, we can tell by the dosha. But most people sleep pretty well in the south, southwest, or the west area of the house. So even if you're kapha, it won't hurt too much. So yeah, those are the directions. And then the direction you sleep in those rooms is really has an effect on the quality of your sleep. Whether many of your listeners, they sleep 7-8 hours, but they wake up and they don't feel refreshed. And this is due partly, it can be due to many Vastu factors, but mainly it's the direction that you're sleeping in. So we say in Vastu, never sleep with your head or your headboard to the north, your feet pointing south. And the reason is our body is a magnet. The positive polarity is in the head, and positive magnetic energy comes from the north. So if we are sleeping with our headboard on a north wall, feet pointing south, it's like bringing two positive ends of a magnet together, or two magnets together. The two positive ends will always repel. It disturbs the blood flow, the circulation, the digestion. And over time, you're not releasing that stress and you're not waking up feeling refreshed. And it's disturbing the overall sleep. So any other direction, west, east, or south, is good. Particularly if you have health issues, south is the best direction because it completes that magnetic cycle when you're sleeping. Now, if your house is not aligned to the cardinal directions, that means you're not aligned to the longitudinal, latitudinal lines. Maybe your house faces southwest or southeast or northwest or northeast. Then avoid northeast and northwest as well. So those are the main things. East is maybe the second best direction. West would be the third best direction after south. But yeah, never north. And I've been involved in lots of studies or a couple study actually, in hospitals where they'll take 50 patients recovering from a similar surgery. And while they're recovering from the surgery, 25 of the headboards would be in the north direction and 25 would be in the south direction. And what they find, even within a period of 3 days, is people with the headboards to the north are having less REM cycles. This is a sleep indication of deep sleep, and shorter REM cycles. Whereas the patients with their headboards to the south, feet pointing north, are having more REM cycles and longer REM cycles. So they're sleeping more deeply. And what they find in these studies is the patients that are sleeping with their headboards to the north wall, they're not recovering as quickly. They're having more complications, even within that short period of time.
That's so interesting, Michael. And of course, you spoke about the east, west, and the south. And obviously, in a home, there's so many people, and then sometimes it's not always practical to see exactly somebody's body constitution. And so, therefore, there must be some. Now, I know that we do want to discuss, because since you spoke about ideal bedroom position and the ideal headboard, but let's talk about what if the house were not in sync with the ideal, and what can we do? Because as you rightly pointed out just at the start, that people shouldn't get stressed that their home is not, I mean, it's not always practical that they can change their home or change the position of their bedroom. So what can they do when the situation is not ideal?
Yes, so I go to many homes and people contact me from all over the world every day. What can I do? Just like you're saying. So even if your bedroom is not in an ideal location, try to sleep with your head not to the north. And I go in lots of bedrooms, and it's not even possible for the headboard to be on. The only place to put the bed is the headboard goes on the north wall because of the doors and windows in the other directions. So then I say something very weird. I tell them, fine, you can have your bed there, but when you go to sleep, just throw your pillow on the other end of the bed and try for 2 weeks sleeping with your head on the opposite end of the bed if it's north. And what people see 99% of the time is, after a few days of getting used to this, they're sleeping much more deeply, waking up much more refreshed. And it's, the body needs to repair itself, and sleep and meditation, yoga, all these things are designed to reduce that stress in the body so that we don't get these illnesses, and we can function much, much better. And so, this is an opportunity that everyone has to change that position, even if the bed is not in the right direction.
Perfect, Michael. And I do want to ask you one question because it's very relevant in today's modern world where we're talking so much about being sympathetic, dominant, and fight or flight, and how most of the world is overactivated. And I know you spoke in the beginning about the moon energy in a direction which allows you to calm down. And instantly, my mind went to the parasympathetic, the calming, the lunar, and how in our body the Ida and the Pingala. But I don't want us to go into all of that. I would just love to know, in the present situation when most of the health challenges and sleep challenges are a result of being in an overactive mode. So, in this context, what would your recommendation be for Vastu in the home, Vastu in the bedroom, the headboard for somebody who's unable to wind down? Their mind is constantly on hyper alert.
So I'm just going to mention something that should come later, but since you mentioned it, the Ida and the Pingala. So this is a Vastu and Ayurvedic tip, is when you wake up in the morning, hopefully you've had a good rest, you roll to the right side for a few minutes until the left nostril opens, and the left, so the left nadi is open. And then when you get out of bed, you put your right foot down first. So this sets up the biorhythm for the day to come into activity in a more restful than agitated state, because the right nadi is, for sleep, for sex, for eating and things like that. The left nadi is more for intuition and being very creative and very productive. And it will get you more into, instead of that stressful fight or flight mode, more the parasympathetic, as you were saying. So that's one tip. Now, in terms of the bedroom, what else can we do? So many things are there in terms of Vastu. So having the room dark as possible, if you could put some blackout shades, and not having any kind of night light. And because the eyes, if, as soon as you wake up and there's some light, even you look at a clock and it kind of activates the mind, it's hard to go back to sleep. So as dark as possible is one thing. Then the other thing is reducing the clutter in the bedroom. Anything that's not organized, it will can affect the sleep and the mind, and especially whatever you put underneath your bed. So better not to have anything under the bed. Some people have their mattress directly on the floor. That's not good. Good to have some gap, some airspace under the bed, and not putting anything under the bed. If you have to have some storage under the bed, it could be some sheets and bedding and things, but never books, never shoes. Shoes pick up the energy from wherever you've been. That, again, can agitate the sleep and affect you. Not even shoes in the bedroom if you can help it. And so in terms of other things, again, when you're going to sleep, there's a few things that you can do that are very beneficial. One is aromatherapy, having some lavender plant in the bedroom. Lavender aroma is calming, as well as rose and jasmine can be also there in terms of aromas. The other things is putting a small piece of rose quartz in the four corners of the bedroom. this is having a very calming effect on the sleep as well. Then in terms of what can you do when you keeping all the electronics out of the bedroom. So no TV, not charging your phone next to your bed, not keeping your phone there, not looking at the phone, no screen time before you go to sleep. All of these things have a big effect. So in Vastu, we look at 7 different things that could create some stress that affects your sleep as well as your health and other things. One is if you're aligned to the cardinal directions. So when you're not aligned to the cardinal directions, that means you're not aligned to the earthly grid system. It distorts the energy field in the house and it affects your thinking. So again, the Vata will be activated, the Pitta can be activated, affecting the sleep. And we're never going to ask you to pick up your house and turn it one way or another. But there are some Vastu remedies through a Vastu consultation that can easily correct this without any remodeling or anything. The second thing that affects the stress in the house is the placement of things like toilets and stove and the electronics, like we were just talking about, the router in your house. Never have a router in the bedroom if you can, affect it. And many people now, including my wife, is very sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies. So that's one of the Vastu things is earth energies, underground streams, underground utilities, the pipes, the water pipes and the electrical wiring and all of these things. In India, you're in the forest, but in the cities, they have all these wires going over the house, and it's just a lot of electromagnetic frequencies everywhere, and this affects the sleep. So we've developed a USB plug that will go into any outlet in the wall, anywhere in the world. And this transforms the wiring in the house to set up a protective shield against 5G, to protect you from the 5G frequencies. And also we have a pendant that contains paramagnetic material that transforms these electromagnetic frequencies that support the prana flow in the body and does not create incoherent waves that affect our the frequencies in the body. So those are one couple things. The other thing is the shape of the house, even the shape of the bedroom. If you have a missing corner in the bedroom, maybe you have a closet that sticks out and there's a little hallway, or a lot of modern houses don't have doors and they lead to a master bathroom or another bathroom or some other closet. This creates an extension or a missing corner, and some energy gets stuck. You can think of that energy flow is like a river. And if there's a bend in the river, some of the water stagnates and creates an anti-clockwise motion and creates some pollution. And the same thing happens with the energy flow in your house or your bedroom. If it's not got 4 corners, more than 4 corners, then there's some energy getting stuck, and this will affect the sleep. So if it's getting stuck in the northwest, it's agitating that vata, that the lot of thinking going on while you're trying to fall asleep. And if it's in the northeast, then the water gets reduced, then that calming energy is not there. And if it's in the southeast, then the pitta gets up, more agitation, harder to fall asleep. And southwest, missing corner or extension, then there's not that grounding earth energy, so the sleep. So a couple other things we can do while we're falling asleep is you can do, many of your listeners may or may not know about Ujjayi breath. It's called Darth Vader breath. I can just your attention goes to the back of the throat. If you put your hands on your stomach, laying on your back, and you do about 7 or 8 deep, long, slow, deep Ujjayi breath through the nose, this is very calming to the system. Other pranayams are, alternate nostril breathing, nadi shodhana. Breathe out in out, in, back and forth. This can be balancing the left and the right hemisphere of the brain and calming the system. The other thing is breathing into the count of 4, holding for the count of 6, and breathing out to the count of 8. This is also a pranayama that can be very calming. Now, in terms of mantras, there is some mantra that's very calming. And we'll get into more of this when we talk about Vedic medical astrology in our next episode. But the moon is very related to sleep because it's mind and emotions. And the Devata mantra for moon is Vasu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Namaha. This, instead of counting sheep, that's what we do in the West to fall asleep, just chanting that a few times is very, very calming to the system. So those are some of the Vastu things. You know, the other thing is having a little bit of a cup of copper, a copper cup with some water next to you that can be calming, and then you drink that water when you wake up in the morning. It's at room temperature. It can, you know, release the toxins in the body when you wake up. And then having a regular sleep habit. You know, make sure that you finish your dinner before 7 o'clock. This is very hard for a lot of people now, but having a routine, and then going to sleep before 10 o'clock, and then you will wake up before the sun rises in the morning, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. This routine is very good. And seeing the sun, if you're in a part of the world where you can see the sunlight when the sun rises, this balances the melatonin in the body, and it'll balance that sleep cycle for you. So those are some environmental Vastu tips.
And you shared a lot, Michael. And in fact, I was smiling when you said that it's not recommended to sleep on the floor on a mattress, because I would always say that I get such great sleep when I sleep on the floor on a mattress. So I wanted to quickly ask you why that is not recommended, because in traditionally many ashrams as well, I mean, we would sleep on the floor in a mattress. And for me, maybe because I'm so vata dominant, I feel grounded, and I'm always saying that I feel supported when I'm on the floor. Could you clarify that as to why that's not recommended?
So one thing is the earth energies. You want some gap there to not be affected by underground streams, underground channels. And then in terms of the utilities, especially if you're in an apartment building, there's the wires and the pipes in the floor and all that. You're picking up all that radiation coming from those things. So that's why there's some gap will help. And even with the headboard, keep some gap 4 inches away from the wall, so you're not picking up all that radiation. In the United States, when I design a house, a Vastu house, we set it up so there's a switch in the bedroom that shuts off all the wiring that goes around the bedroom is completely not activated while you're sleeping. Again, reducing that electromagnetic frequencies. So if you have to have a TV in the bedroom, some people just have to have it, then cover up with silk. Silk is a barrier for radiation. So then that's one thing you can do, but try to keep the cell phone, try to keep computers out of the bedroom, the router and all the other screen things that we do. And stop screen time at least an hour or so before bed. Definitely. Read a book, do something like that.
And I think what you shared about the mattress makes sense in an apartment. And maybe that's also why I felt good lying on the mattress on the floor, because I've always lived out in nature, no apartments, there's nothing around us. And
Yeah.
I feel so good when I put the mattress on the floor. And I've always lived in areas where there's no one around me, even growing up. And maybe there is a big difference living like that versus living in an apartment. So I suppose all these little inputs matter so much too. But you did share a lot, and I, of course, want to respect that we are almost out of time for the episode. And I'm sure it's already a lot to grasp for somebody who's new to Vastu. So if somebody would like to consult with you or get your Vastu for their home or to improve their sleep, where can they find you?
So the website is vastucreations.com, all one word there. And they can also contact me for a free Vastu ebook at michaelmastrovastu@gmail.com. And maybe you can put that in somewhere, where the podcast is shown. And yeah, I'd be happy to send you that free Vastu ebook with lots more tips in that. And then, yeah, if you wanted to get a consult, I do consults for people all over the world, India, Mongolia, everywhere. And people, all they do is send me a little sketch. If you just live in a bedroom, draw a rectangle, and where's your bed, and where's your desk, and where's the toilet, where's the stove, and things like that. And then I will, based on that, do an analysis of your home and mail you or even email you the yantras and give directions on how to place that to provide the remedies without any remodeling. So it's a very inexpensive way to get a Vastu compliant house, no matter where you live. If you're next to a cemetery or if you're in a house that's totally not Vastu compliant. So yes, so those are the things.
Thank you, Michael, for your wisdom today. And we'll definitely have you back on an episode, because I do want to talk about Vedic astrology and how that might interplay with sleep. But thank you for talking about Vastu today.
Thank you so much for sharing this precious knowledge with your listeners.
In this episode, Michael Mastro shared immense wisdom from his years of Vastu experience. I simply must wrap up this episode by sharing my takeaway from it, which is that we must not have fear when it comes to knowledge like Vastu. We live in a world where practitioners themselves can leave us with fear that something is not right. I remember when I was a vulnerable young girl in a new marriage, and a practitioner of ancient wisdom frightened me by telling me that the energy in my home was negative, and unless I agreed to have him do some corrective ceremonies, my marriage would fall apart. Well, my marriage back then did end in divorce, but I wish I had met a reassuring practitioner such as Michael Mastro. If someone does make strong statements and use fear, my advice would be to find another practitioner. In the meantime, if you'd like guidance correcting the Vastu in your home, I hope this episode helped you in feeling inspired to go down that road. Have a great day. Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show today. Just a reminder that this podcast is for information purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or otherwise qualified health professional. This information is provided on the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you are looking for personal help on your health journey, do seek out a qualified professional. Please do make your own healthcare decisions based upon your research and in partnership with a qualified healthcare professional. It is in no way intended as medical advice or a treatment or cure for any condition. Be sure to always directly work with a qualified practitioner before making any changes to your diet or lifestyle that may feel out of your realm of comfort or understanding. If you are looking for an allied functional medicine practitioner, do seek out more information on www.phytothrive.com. It is important that you have someone who is qualified and understands your health personally in order to provide adequate care, especially when it comes to chronic health conditions. Be sure to subscribe to the Sleep Whisperer podcast on your favorite podcast app to get each episode as soon as it launches.